The PlayAction podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
The Bills have a primetime game at home this week, a Monday night football game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mark, let's start with Bills offense versus Jacksonville defense. What stands out to you there?
You know, Jacksonville's defense is really good. I hate to, I seem like sometimes every week I pump up the opponent, but this is not they're 0-2, but they're not an 0-2 team. It's mind-numbing. They lost to they held Miami to 20 points. They played man coverage the whole game against Miami, 73% man coverage, which is unbelievable. And they shut Miami down. Now, I know Bills fans are thinking, well, Miami, they're overrated and terrible. Miami's offense is legit. Okay, there's no doubt about it. And Jacksonville played a great game against Miami. So, it's like I feel like I'm Lou Holtz, Little Sisters of the was famous for like every week he'd go on for 15 minutes about how great the opponent was, make them the Little Sisters of the Poor out to be the 1945 Army cadets. Anyway, Jacksonville 0-2. Let's go back. It was terrible. They lost they were killing Miami. Travis Etienne fumbles at the 3-yard line into the end zone. Next play, Miami throws an 80-yard touchdown. Next drive, 3 plays later, they go for it on 4th and 1 from their own 30 and run the stupidest, slow-developing pitch wide, get stuffed. 3 minutes of game time, their game is over. They just hand it away. It is like it's ridiculous. It reminds me of the Jimmy Buffett song, made enough plays to beat Miami, but they pissed it away so fast.
A classic
Don't get me
football
started.
example. Yeah. Yeah, so I think this is also, it's been an interesting matchup for the Bills in recent years, which, doesn't always apply to the future meetings between the two teams.
It's the same team, though.
It is, yeah.
Right, on defense. Yeah, I mean, and they, the Bill, we can go into the London game. Bills' offense was sleepwalked.
Yeah.
Right. We could talk for a whole segment about the whole plan going to London. Anyway, they sleepwalked. It was 3-and-out, punt for the Bills' offense. But going back, this is a legitimate defensive line for the Bills are facing. Josh Hines-Allen, 17.5 sacks last year.
Yep.
Gave the one guy who gave Deion Dawkins trouble last year. Trayvon Walker on the other side, number 1 overall pick in the draft, had 10 sacks. That's a legit bookends defensive ends. They're the middle of their defense. They have 3 real veteran pros: Eric Armstead, Roy Robertson Harris, backup Devon Hamilton. They have a legit defensive line. The big thing, though, is that their elite cornerback, Tyson Campbell, is on a 4-week IR.
Yep.
That he is their like $19 million a year shutdown cornerback. That's a big factor.
I think especially we're still getting a feel for what this Bills offense is going to look like as far as how they're going to attack other defenses. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do there.
I think it's going to be a different game plan. I watched the Cleveland Jacksonville game now, and Jacksonville defense played well there. Now Cleveland's offense is just terrible to watch. It's just painful. But so the Bill, it's tough. The first 2 games, I counted Jacksonville playing like 50% man against Cleveland. They weren't afraid of Deshaun Watson's scramble. They never spied.
Yeah.
Watson. The game plan against Cleveland is going to be different. And Miami, Buffalo's offense is totally different than Cleveland's offense and Miami's offense. So I'm not sure. They have a new defensive coordinator. Not sure what to expect. If they play a lot of man, which I think is their MO, it's Shakir, Kincaid over the middle. You're going to see a lot of crossing routes, a lot of man beaters. I think Shakir and Kincaid have the opportunity to catch passes. I also think this is one where if I'm Jacksonville, I take away the middle of the field, force Josh Allen to throw the ball outside. So they're Jacksonville's number 2 corner, where they got old Ronald Darby. He's only 30, but he seems like he's been around a long time.
30 in the NFL is still,
Their number 2 cornerback is Monteric Brown. who is a 7th-round pick. That's a matchup that Bills have to win. Their slot corner is a rookie who's got talent in Jerrion Jones. He's a 4.38 speed guy. So I think the opportunity is there for the Bills to throw the ball in man beaters against them. How much man do you want to play against Josh Allen, who can run the ball? Teams are a little loath to do that. So I'm a little not sure what to expect from Jacksonville's defense. They've been playing the first 2 games, they rushed 4, covered with 7, and got away with it.
Yeah.
So if you can rush 4, get some heat, and cover with 7, game's a lot easier. Can they do that against Buffalo?
Very different matchup.
Yeah, and now go back another thing that went wrong for the Bills in London. Bills running backs, 10 carries, 15 yards. Hey, if that's going to happen again, the Bills are in deep trouble. You can't. That's a problem. That Jacksonville held the ball for 38 minutes. If the game's going to play out like that, the script was worst case scenario game script for the Bills in London. The Buffalo Bills' banged-up defense, will see if it can keep it rolling after throttling the Miami Dolphins last week. This week, much different challenge against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Katherine, what do you think about where this Bills defense, stands entering this game?
Yeah, we'll focus on Terrell Bernard a little more later in the podcast, but I think even just looking at this defense, how they match up against Jacksonville, it's a really interesting one, especially when you look at the injuries they still have. I'll be interested to see if Dawuane Smoot finally gets to start against his former team.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills brought him in this past off season and now, started his career in Jacksonville, still has a lot of ties there, but has had that toe injury. So it would be nice story-wise if he gets to face a team that means a lot to him. But
yeah.
It also would mean something from a football standpoint for the Bills if they could get him involved.
I like Smoot signing. I think he is worth mentioning this week. To oversimplify the comparison, he's kind of a Shaq Lawson type defensive end, stouter, bigger, stop the run. I think Smoot's presence is absolutely critical the next game against Baltimore, when they got to try to stop the run without Bernard and without Milano. But it is worth mentioning here because stopping the run is so critical against Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
They have talent in the passing. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is underrated, if you will, because he is an elite talent. I am not exaggerating. They should be better than this. Jacksonville fans have to be pulling their hair out over this offense. You look at their talent, they should be better than this. One thing you can't do, given their talent in the passing game, is let them run the ball. Again, going back to London, they got killed. The Bills got killed in the running game. Travis Etienne, 26 for 136. Now, last year, the London game, the Bills had no starting cornerback, Trey White, no Milano for most of the game, no Greg Rousseau, no Daquan Jones, and Taron Johnson got hurt.
Yeah.
So it was a disaster.
Yeah. If they can avoid more injuries, that would be critical for this defense. You mentioned their passing game too, though. Reunion with Gabe Davis for Buffalo. I think, he heads to Jacksonville. What do you think we'll see out of him?
I mean, Gabe is what he is. We know what he is. He's a big wide receiver who's gonna run downfield routes. He's going to run posts. He's going to run play action downfield. They're going to try to stretch the field with him. Their other 2 receivers are supremely talented. Christian Kirk is a really excellent slot receiver. He's got vertical intermediate ability from the slot, and then they drafted Brian Thomas Jr. From LSU, 6'3", 209, runs 4.33. That's elite. Now, Brian Thomas Jr., the MO on him coming in the draft, he doesn't quite play 6'3", if you will, but still, he can go deep. He beat number 5, Jalen Ramsey, deep in the end zone for a penalty in the Miami game. He beat Cleveland's excellent good corner, Greg Newsome, for a 66-yarder on a play-action pass. Jacksonville will go deep. By my count, Trevor Lawrence is 6 for 8 on deep balls for 184 yards through 2 weeks. That doesn't count 3 deep balls at the end of the last desperation series against Cleveland. Jacksonville's offense looked bad against Cleveland, but Cleveland has one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL. Cleveland has one of the top 3 or 4 defensive secondaries in the NFL. Cleveland's defensive backfield is better than the Bills' defensive backfield. And the Bills have a good defensive backfield. Cleveland's is better. So just because Jacksonville looked really bad against Cleveland doesn't mean they're as bad as they looked.
You mentioned the deep ball. Are you surprised that Jacksonville hasn't had more explosive plays?
Yeah, I'm surprised that Jacksonville's offense isn't better. This is talent. Like Thomas, Kirk, and Davis and Evan Engram led the NFL among tight ends and receiving. He's a big receiver. He's not a blocker. He's a receiver. Now, injury thing to watch. He pulled his hamstring. He's got a hamstring injury. Sat out the Cleveland game. His replacement, Brenton Strange, had a big game just because they got weapons everywhere else. You're not like you can't double cover Brenton Strange when you got these other guys to worry about. That's this is. The Bills can put a nail in the coffin of the Jaguars, but they're coming in. They're facing a really desperate 0-2 team that knows their season is on the line, and that should be playing better than they are. Bills' defensive line, we can talk about that a little bit, dominated Miami. Bills' defensive line has to play a good game this week against a line that is maybe a little better than Miami's, a little better.
Now, the Bills will be without Terrell Bernard for a little bit, but they did get good news on that front that it is not a season-ending injury for Terrell Bernard. Injured his pectoral muscle against Miami. They have yet to put him on IR, which I think is huge. He's so key to this defense at linebacker. Mark, what did you think of this? They avoided the worst here, certainly.
Oh, my God. Well, I mean, the fact, and Sean McDermott said, the fact they're not putting him or Taron Johnson IR, their indications are they're hoping to get them back, or that they'd only miss 3 weeks, probably, 3 or 4. If you're not putting them on IR, you're hoping you're going to get them back that 4th week. So, yes, this is a tough stretch to lose them. But, I mean, if Bernard is out for the year, had been out for the year, that would be a colossal negative. So, good news. Can they weather this next 3-week storm, let's say, without Bernard or Milano, who's out till December at least? So it's Jacksonville, Baltimore, Houston. Really tough stretch. In comes Balen Spector. What did you think of Balen Spector against Miami?
Yeah, you could see him kind of adjusting early on, where I think there were a couple miscues right at the start, but got it together certainly. I think it's a testament to that linebacker room of, they're playing now Balen Spector, Dorian Williams. Sean McDermott did say they anticipate Balen Spector continuing to be the starter until Terrell Bernard comes back, which he did say they were still having conversations about IR at the time. But I think, knowing that it'll be Spector for a bit, I thought the defense as a whole held up well, and he was a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it says something that Spector is playing. They're not going with the more veteran Nick Morrow.
Right.
And the reason is Spector, I think, has more upside. Spector, even though he's a 7th-round draft choice, played a ton of football. He played as a freshman at Clemson.
Yeah.
4-year player at Clemson, and has a little better better athleticism than you would expect for a 7th-round draft choice. He ran 4.60, which is faster than Milano.
Yeah.
Now, what Milano has and what Bernard have are elite instincts. And so now the Bills are playing, without Bernard, Milano, and Taron Johnson this week, 3 guys that bring elite see it, hit it, instinct, playmaking. And that's a big loss, okay? Dorian Williams has, done okay, but he's not an instinct play. He's not an instinctual playmaker yet. He is an athletic guy who can make plays. He is a force when he does see. I mean, he has speed. He has the excellent athleticism, but the instincts in the middle of the defense are taking a hit. And how can the Bills withstand that? That's a question.
Yeah. I talked to Christian Benford after the Miami game, and he had kind of a mindset about it that I really liked. He basically, to paraphrase, was saying that Balin Spector didn't fill Terrell Bernard's shoes. He put on the shoes that were meant for him.
Yeah. Okay.
They're saying he's not going to just be the same player, but he said he came in, made plays, handled what he needed to handle, and even though he's a different guy, the defense got what they needed out of Spector in that game.
Yeah, I think Spector, again, given his not to overrate athletic testing, but he's not just a Joe, a guy who's just gonna. He has a little better athleticism than just some seventh round guy who's gonna be in the league 4 years and gone.
He does.
Right.
He's got a bit of an injury history, too, but I think that shows that the Bills believe in him, that they've kept him around during all of this.
Well, and that's been a big problem for
Yes.
his career. So I think going into this next stretch, the linebacker situation is absolutely a worry, given the talented offense the Bills are going to face. Now, I think another thing you got to give the Bills credit for, again, with these linebacker injuries is, well, let's not play them 95% of the time, meaning the dime.
Yep.
I wrote about it in the paper this week on how much they used dime against Miami. I can't remember the numbers. It was 14, 15 plays. Any third and medium or third and long, they're putting Cam Lewis and Jamarcus Ingram on the field with Spector. So I think that's a workaround.
Yes.
That is working so far.
Yeah, they deployed it some last year, too, when Matt Milano was out. But I think Jamarcus Ingram, I've been really impressed with how he's played. So I think that's definitely, like you said, a good workaround for this.
Right. And I think that, injury news to keep a close eye on this week is Evan Engram, who missed the Miami game with the hamstring. If you're Jacksonville, you're thinking Balin Spector and Dorian Williams, hey, the Bills got to worry about Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk. Evan Engram is going to beat Dorian Williams or Balin Spector in the middle of the field. If you're Jacksonville, you should be attacking that.
Yeah, I think there's so much to watch in this matchup. Our coworkers, Jay Skursky and Ryan O'Halloran, will be breaking it down after it happens on their podcast. But then we'll be back next week with the PlayAction podcast. So make sure you're reading along BuffaloNews.com and subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts for more.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's, we are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.